There you go. David.
I mean, that's what she did.
You're up.
I mean, she did two. It's the red.
You still got seconds.
So that's
Hello, everyone. It's 6:30, and we're going to commence tonight's Board of Selectmen's meeting. It's the Monday, July 25th, 2022, to be held in the Walkway Meeting Room at the Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North, Mashpee, Massachusetts. I'd like to start off the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, if everyone would stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If we could now have a moment of silence. Thank you. I'd accept a motion to approve the meeting minutes from Monday, July 11th, Select Board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Hearing the first and second. Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. The time's now 6:30. We have a poll hearing that was announced. John, if you could read it.
The Town of Mashpee Board of Selectmen will conduct a cable and conduit hearing on petition work order number 7856849 dated July 13th, 2022, from the Nsas Electric Company doing business as Eversource Energy, proposing to install approximately 104 feet of conduit and cable under the public road on Sturgis Lane. The proposed location is necessary to provide electric service to number 33 Sturgis Lane, Mashpee, Mass. Said hearing will take place on Monday, July 25th, 2022 at 6:30 in the Wakewater Meeting Room, Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North, Mashpee, Mass.
Mr. Chair, if I may, the Eversource is not able to be here tonight. It is a public hearing, however, and if anyone here has any objection to this, if they come to the mic and give us that. If not, we can close the public hearing and approve the motion.
Thank you, Wayne.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I'd just add that the reason why they're not here was because of the anticipated storm.
Okay. Duly noted. So this proposed work is required to provide electric service to 33 Sturgis Lane. Does anyone from the board have any questions or concerns?
I know.
Is there anyone from the general public that has questions or concerns?
Hi, Arden Russell, Sturgis Lane. A lot of activity in this neck of the woods recently. I just want to ensure that somebody from the town is there when this work is done so that the road is returned to its really good standing right now. This road was repaved very recently. It's a darn shame that it's being torn up, so I just want to make sure that Eversource doesn't leave it in less condition than it is right now. Thank you.
We'll make a note of that. Thank you.
Valid point, thank you. Anyone else from the public have concerns with this poll hearing?
I make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Roll call?
Yes.
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 Make a motion to do the poll work on Sturgis Lane and to have a,
Close the public hearing.
We
We
did.
just did.
just
I'm sorry.
No problem.
I'm writing.
and have someone from the town or DPW to watch the work. being done,
Re-inspect. Yep.
To inspect.
Second.
Anyone, roll call vote?
Yes.
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 Yes. Unanimous on that, that motion passes. I would like to make one announcement that, it's very unfortunate that we were notified that Chair Andrew Gottlieb decided to step down, and I, for one, just want to say that, you know, his input and contributions to this board will be greatly missed. I've developed a fond appreciation for everything that he brings to the table, and I, for one, will miss his presence and input in those and subsequent discussions. I will leave it at that, and we wish him the best in all his future endeavors.
Agreed.
So next item on the agenda is
Recreational.
the approval of the following special events, temporary sign permit and one-day beer and wine license, put forward by the Recreation Director, Mary Bradbury.
We did not have her coming in after consultation with the prior chair,
Okay.
but it has gone through the review, and unless the board has some specific
These are all standard
They're all
renewals.
questions, yes, they're all standard.
Issues from any of the other departments?
That is correct.
I make a motion for the following. October 1st, Oktoberfest. October 1st, 2022, 10 to 4, Mashpee Commons. Green, Veterans Day ceremony, November 11th, 2022, 10 to 11:30 a.m. at the Mashpee Community Park. The holiday tree lighting, December 12th, 2022, 5:30 to 6:30 at the Mashpee Community Park.
Second.
Having a first and second, roll call vote?
Yes.
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 Yes. That was unanimous. The motion passes. The other one that we have is that was all.
National Night Out is the next one.
Oh, okay. The National Night Out, I entertain a motion to approve the National Night Out special event to be held on August 9th, 2022, from 5:30 to 7:30. That's typically held at 19 Hicks Drive. That was put forward by Brian Burke,
Yes, that's at the PD.
and he's not joining us tonight to speak to it.
That is correct. After consultation with then Chair Gottlieb, everything appeared in order, and this is one of the events that is renewed, although I think there was a delay or postponement, I should say, as a result of COVID, but we're trying to get that back on track.
Yep.
You have a motion on the floor?
I'll accept a motion to approve.
Yes.
Second?
Second. Roll call?
Yes.
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 Yes. Unanimous by all present. That motion passes. We have an update on the wastewater project.
Oh, wait a minute, David. We have
one more?
Mashpee Historical Commission Preservation Award Ceremony will be a special event, August 21st, 2022, 2 to 4, at the Mashpee Community Park, at Park Gazebo. Richard DeSordo.
And I know he's here.
Richard's here.
Hi, just a little background. This would be the 4th annual Mashpee Historical Preservation Award ceremony, which is sponsored by the Mashpee Historical Commission. But because of the pandemic, we have been unable to hold for the past 3 years. So on August 21, we look to hold to honor the 2019, 2020, and 2021 recipients. Just some background, the Preservation Award was started by the Commission to bring awareness to Mashpee history, with the hope of preserving that history and to encourage individual homeowners, organizations, and businesses to take steps towards preservation. The awards are meant to thank those who undertake such efforts and to bring publicity with the hope that it will encourage others in town to do whatever they can to preserve our unique culture and history for future generations. The 2018, which was the first award, was presented to Earl Mills Sr. for the work that he did in stabilizing the parsonage for further deterioration, and also for the work that he did in contributing to the recording of Mashpee's history through his writings, book publishing on Mashpee history, and photo identification and restoration. This year, we will present the 2019 award to the Native Land Conservancy under the leadership of Ramona Peters due to their efforts of obtaining and preserving the land and history of the 3 islands in Wakeby Pond, Cleveland, Jefferson, and Keith Islands. And the 2020 award will be presented to historian Rosemary Burns Love for her work in researching Mashpee's history, including extensive work that she did with land deeds in the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds, and documenting and recording that history and turning it over for public use at the archives. And the 2021 award will be presented to the Mashpee Town Seal Committee for their efforts and final product in preserving Mashpee's history in the form of producing our own town seal, replacing the seal that was sent to us by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which was basically a replica of the state seal containing very little of Mashpee's rich history. The new seal now preserves that history for all time, and we hope everyone will be able to attend the ceremony.
Thank you, Richard, and I just want to commend the commission for all the work that they do, and it sounds like you've given careful thought and consideration to the recipients, and they're all very good choices. Thank you.
Thank you.
I accept a motion to approve the Historical
So moved.
Commission's Preservation Award ceremony. Second? Hearing a second. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That's
Looking forward to it.
unanimous. That motion passes. So this brings us to the update on the wastewater
Annual
project.
beer tent.
Oh.
One more,
One
David,
more?
one more. Annual beer tent by the
Little
Mashpee
excited.
Kiwanis
You trying to get out
at
of
Oktoberfest. We tried to get out of it. The annual beer tent by the Mashpee Kiwanis at Oktoberfest, the license for October 1st, 2022, 10 to 4, Robin Blakeman. I don't think Robin's here.
No, they're not going to be here.
It's a, they do it every
Annual
year.
event.
It's an
annual.
annual event, and we
Yes.
would say the same
All,
on this
All
as we did the
approvals.
others, yes.
They meet all the,
so I motion to approve the one-day beer and wine license and waiver fee for Kiwanis Club Mashpee.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
yes.
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 Yes. That too is unanimous. That motion passes.
And there
Now
you
it's okay to
go.
proceed to wastewater update. Ray Jack?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a little bit of show and tell. When I was here for the last meeting, I had mentioned about the wastewater plant and the type of technology that you approved for it, and I said that I had some membranes at home. I found them. So this is what they're going to look like, and if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pass these around to the board members so they can see them.
Sure.
This is a cartridge, okay? It's hollow tube fiber membrane. You can see that they're hollow. If you look at the bottom, you see that each one of those little pieces of spaghetti in there is actually a hollow core, all right? And then under pressure, water is put into this cylinder. Cylinders are about 6 feet tall, and the water comes out clean on the other side. So a number of these will be placed into a cassette, and then the cassettes go into the plant. This is another type of membrane. This one's for electro dialysis, which isn't a pressure-driven type of process. It's an electrical-driven process. So they put an electrical charge in the water and cause anions, cations, or non-ions to go through or not go through this membrane. So it's a very, very highly polished water when it comes out the other end on this.
How many of those are in one cylinder?
I'm sorry?
How many of those are in one cylinder?
Well, it usually depends on spacing configurations within the plant. So it's adjustable for width, it's also adjustable for height. They can go in as many as 6 of them in a cassette and a number of cassettes in a row for large-scale plants or not, so.
And that will give us the clean water end result?
Yes. Membrane technology is unquestionably the way of the future with respect to
Can we
water.
have something like this in our septics, our home septics?
In a home septic system,
To clean it.
I've never seen anything like that, but I can assure you it would be very, very expensive. Okay? It's
You
not
changed your
cheap.
mind.
It's heavy.
The membranes, are they before, they're after the filtration of the tubes?
Yes, there'll be tanks, concrete tanks alongside the plant. And there's 3 zones, 3 wet zones in there for the biological process to occur. Starts out with anoxic, then it goes aerobic, and then another anoxic zone. That's part of the biological process of nitrification and denitrification. And then it goes ultimately through the membranes, okay?
And you use both of these, that and this?
No. The plant's just going to be using a tube like that, hollow fiber membranes. And just for clarity, so that people would understand, people have heard of aerobic. People have probably heard of anaerobic. Few people have heard of anoxic. And there's a difference between the 3. Aeration, if it's aerobic, it means it has plenty of oxygen in a free form available for use. If it's anaerobic, it's absent of oxygen. If it's anoxic, it doesn't have free oxygen, it has combined oxygen. So it's at the molecular level. It's still available for microbes to be able to use it, but they got to get at it. They got to break down a molecule in order to get it. Okay, so they are different. One has a lot of oxygen, one has no oxygen, one has oxygen in a reduced state. Okay?
Interesting.
I will be brief tonight. I do know that you have a busy schedule ahead of you. So what I wanted to do, because there's a certain point that I need to get tonight in this presentation, so it's going to start out, I guess, with just a little bit of history on regulations. So from a regulatory background, Rachel Carson wrote Silent Spring. That's the name of a book in 1962, and it represented an environmental epiphany for the nation. It was the beginning of what was soon to become EPA. Her book was really about the widespread pesticide use and its effect on humans and the environment, specifically DDT, which they ultimately did wind up banning from the environment. She passed away in 1964, which is a couple of years after this. She spent a summer studying at Woods Hole Institute in Falmouth. And this was one of her quotes. One way to open your eyes is ask yourself, what if I had never seen this before? And what if I knew I would never see it again? That was the only time you were ever going to see it. There are things in our lifetime that we have never seen in real life, okay? And that means animals that have gone extinct. You've never seen a dinosaur, they're gone. And species go extinct on a regular basis, unfortunately. So there are things that if you did see it once, consider yourself lucky because you won't see it again. EPA was an agency created in 1970. The great thing about it was prior to that, and that was only 50 years ago, every state was on its own for public health and environmental protection. They made their own rules, so they were dramatically different. What the federal government finally realized is that health issues and environmental issues transcend boundaries such as municipal and state, federal boundaries, okay? So you needed something at the federal level in order for things to actually work. What a lot of people don't know, Richard Nixon created the agency known as EPA. And he never got credit for that, but he is the one who created it. So, they created in 1970. One of their first orders of business was the Clean Water Act, which involves wastewater. That was 1972, and then the Safe Drinking Water Act of 74. I never quite understood that because the Safe Drinking Water Act is the water you drink. The Clean Water Act is the water in the nation's waterways. So they targeted the polluted waterways prior to public health. Okay, I never quite understood that, but nonetheless. PPCP is pharmaceuticals and personal care products. That issue surfaced in recent years, and that transcends both the Clean Water Act and the Safe Drinking Water Act. Prior to that, from a regulatory perspective, water and wastewater were separate entities. They were separate regulatory schematics, and never the two shall meet. But in any community, if you think about it, you need water, have to have water for life, so you draw water from somewhere, a surface water source or a body, or groundwater. And then you use it, and then you dispose of it. And you collect it when you dispose of it, and you treat it at a wastewater facility. And then you discharge it right back into the environment. So it's a cycle, all right? And if it's not done correctly, it's a vicious cycle. But the two, when people don't think that they are the same, they really are, very similar, all right? They're coming and going to the same places. It's just what happens to them in between. So from a future perspective, it's going to be a paradigm shift. In the current structure of regulation, and historically it's been this way, a bee sting's a nuisance for most, but it's fatal for some people. There was always a recognition when it came to federal regulations that people's physiology is going to react differently with different chemicals. So they would have chemicals allowed in water, they would set numbers for how much was allowed in water, with the understanding that some people may not do so well with it. And that was almost an acceptable compromise. The future regulatory structure is going to be dramatically different. All right, now you got to protect some of the most sensitive subpopulations. So you have the immunocompromised, senior populations, and probably the most important here is the fetal or DNA level. Because many of these chemical substances, they're carcinogens with respect to a lot of the chemicals themselves, as well as mutagens, which means they have the ability to mutate organisms at the DNA level. So with the proverbial three-legged frog and asexual fish, they used to be an oddity. Today, they're more the norm. And that's a sad state of affairs. That is occurring with impacts at the DNA level on those critters and organisms, okay? So just to bring that, it's not the freak of nature that it used to be. It's becoming much more regular in today's environment. Protect public health and protect eco-health. You notice I left a space here. And you say, you missed the space. No, I didn't. I figured it this way. If Rachel Carson can have a quote, so could I. So here it is. Eco-health is public health. We eat the critters that eat the critters that eat the stuff. I don't want you to think about that too much, all right? But, I don't want to blow your minds with it or anything, all right? But quite frankly, it's the truth, all right? We eat, we have to eat. So it doesn't matter if you're eating critters or if you're a vegan, you're going to eat plant material, it doesn't matter. We have to preserve the environment to ensure that all of the things that we will eat ultimately will be clean, will be pure, okay? So it's actually very important. So protecting the public health is protecting the eco-health. And issues like this are very ripe for a federal lead, not necessarily a state lead. So what we have really is a mutually beneficial scenario that our future environmental needs are going to have to meet the future human needs. And the two paths are going to necessarily have to cross. They are right now, but it's very, very important for the future to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And unfortunately, up until now, we really haven't been as a society. So the issue is water quality. And this is a term that was coined by an author, Garrett Hardin, in the 1960s. I want to say 64. So he's the one who came up with that actual quote there, what is common to the greatest number gets the least amount of care. And that was a philosophy of Aristotle. But it really makes a lot of sense if you think about it. When you go out to a public restroom, you wash your hands, you get all done, you do one of these. Try that at home. You don't do that in your own bathroom, shaking that water all over the place. You go out to a public park, you'll throw a cigarette butt, you'll throw a can, you'll throw a napkin, whatever the case may be. You won't do that in your own yard. So the things that are common to us all, nobody owns it. You own your home. You own your bathroom. You understand what you're doing to it, and you care about it. If you don't actually own it, mentally, you don't care. And that's our problem. So the public parks can become problematic. Public facilities. Nobody owns a public facility. You don't own this building per se. It's not yours. You treat it differently if it was. That's really what it is all about. So it's a mindset type thing when you're trying to convince people how collectively we have to start thinking the same in order to protect something that's important. Hippocrates, back in 460 to 377 BC, founded the concept of healthy water. They didn't understand microbiological activity back then. They didn't understand disease organisms. But people were dying all the time. The one thing they had in common, they were drinking water. What he found accidentally is one of the best technologies that we use today, and that is UV disinfection, ultraviolet disinfection, sunlight. It's that simple. If water sits out in the sun, it will be safe to drink. And we do that today actively. We literally use sunlight on some systems, and other ones have UV generators on others, all right? But ultraviolet radiation does destroy microbes. So they didn't know what they were doing or why. But, so, why so much about regulatory issues? Oops, I went backwards. This is why. A couple of weeks ago, you had a meeting with DEP, and they had a stack of slides about that thick. I'm going to condense the whole thing to one slide. But it's very important to go over this and to really grasp, I know it was a very cordial meeting, but to grasp what was really happening here from a regulatory perspective. Okay, what, when, and why? The what? Proposed nitrogen-sensitive areas and watershed permitting regulatory framework. That's what they presented to the board. That's the actual title that they presented. So it's a change. It's a shift that's occurring now, and it's really a revision of the Title V regulations. That's where it can call home, all right? A revised Title V regulation change. So here we are, changes to the nitrogen-sensitive areas, NSAs, provisions of Title V. So they always had a nitrogen-sensitive area in a Title V scenario that was intended predominantly to protect Zone 2s for a public water supply. A Zone 2 is an area that's going to draw water from a geographic area, gets modeled, and anything contaminated that happens in that area is going to affect that supply. So that was already in place, all right? They have more stringent regulations for Zone 2 encounters. So they're going to create a new natural resource area. So you have a nitrogen-sensitive area, which is an NSA, and now you have a natural resource area, which is an NRC. So it's going to be an NRC NSA now, all right? So they're adding a geographic area to it, all right, and expanding the definition of what a resource area is and what a nitrogen-sensitive area is. So it's a watershed to embayment. Anything that has a watershed that goes to an embayment and has a TMDL, total maximum daily load, associated with it, and is already under a 208 plan, which is a component of the Clean Water Act, and that's what the county is doing, all right, through the Cape Cod Commission. They develop and continue to monitor that 208 plan. So for every community on Cape Cod, they're part of that 208 plan. Therefore, Mashpee is already in this. You fit into the model, all right? There's no escaping that because you have a watershed that goes into embayment that has an assigned TMDL and you're under a 208 plan. If that's the case, then the regulations go into effect on the date when they promulgate the final regulations. BAT nitrogen systems, best available technology for nitrogen, which is not a Title V system. You're specifically referring to IAs or innovative alternative systems. Those are considered the best available technology for a nitrogen system. Or a watershed permit. Town's going to have to deal with that question, all right? Two options. Either apply for a state watershed permit, and I'll be describing these in a minute, or you have to put these IA systems in every home in town within a 5-year period. That's what it's about. So now for the when. The nitrogen systems or IA systems would have to be within 5 years, would have to be for every system that's in Mashpee. A watershed permit, on the other hand, is a 20-year permit. It's issued to a governmental unit or units. They prefer to have government units, and Pleasant Bay is the model that they're looking at, all right? You had multiple communities got together and formed basically an alliance and an IMA agreement, an municipal agreement, that they would each do something in order to affect environmental benefit. So that's the standard now as far as DEP is concerned. So they want to see more than one community, but they will issue it to just one if there's only one involved. It's going to be based on an approved watershed management plan. Mashpee has such a plan, which was approved in the year 2015. However, it does have required updates under the Secretary's certificate. So during or after the Phase 1 construction period, the town is required to evaluate its plan. And one of the reasons why it's kind of a mandatory thing, that's not just supposed to be a static plan. You have a shellfish component in there. So it has to evaluate the benefit of shellfish on the environment. Are they doing the job that you expected or not? And if not, that plan, the backup to that plan was municipal sewering. If they fail at the shellfish level, then the town has to do more sewering. So that's already in there. This is important. This is a little bit different here. The permit components are enforceable, okay? The 20-year period means that you have to achieve 75% reduction in the TMDL within that 20-year period. And if you do not, and during that period, if you do not comply with the conditions of that permit, it's an enforceable permit. The state can take action. They can take action in the form of fines. They can take action in the form of forcing the town to do something by taking the town to court. It requires an annual report to be filed, so they will be on top of it, and has a mandatory 5-year evaluation period and review. So then there's the why. Because the Cape isn't doing enough. Now, these are my words on this one. The rest of this was from their presentation. This is my opinion of why. But the degradation surpasses Cape's abilities to achieve the TMDL reduction. The Massachusetts Estuaries Program has been around since the 90s. Okay, it's been in effect for a long time. And yet, insufficient progress has been made across the board and across the Cape in order to fix the problems. So that's why this is happening. And then, like I said, Pleasant Bay, that's the model. So the question is, can it be done? Now they know it can. It's already been proven, all right? So now everybody else is going to have to step up to that plate. They're going to have draft regs available this fall. The meeting with you was a preemptive meeting. That's highly unusual. And I watched that at home with the commissioner here, and I know the commissioner, all right? And I know Millie. It's highly unusual that they will come out in a preemptive mode on something like this. That should give you an idea of the significance of these regulations. So they're going to bring the draft regs out this fall. Normally, the draft regs come out for comment. That's how you find out about it, because that's your place in order to make a comment, if you'd like to, all right? Basically, after they review the comments, they're going to promulgate something in the spring of 2023. So it's not too far away, all right? I expect within 6 to 9 months. And at that time, the town's going to have to be in decision mode as to what they want to do. Okay, so what happened? And I know, like I said, it's kind of a little, you know, taking a walk back through time on this, but what happened? This is Cape Cod 1951. All the little yellow dots, it's all the residential development throughout the Cape, 1951. The question is, what happened? We happened. This is Cape Cod in 1999, and that was over 20 years ago. So in 1951, the population was less than 50,000 on the Cape. Year 2000, it was 225,000, all right? So it was almost a factor of 5 as far as a population increase. Some brief water facts. That dam on the right, that is Hoover Dam, and the lake behind it is the largest man-made lake in the world. That's Lake Mead. The bridge that you see going across the front of it, you used to be able to drive right over the top of the dam itself. That used to be the old road. This is a new bridge that was built after 9/11, all right, so that they wouldn't be able to actually blow up the dam. You weren't allowed to get close to it anymore. But 97% of all water is in the ocean, so only 2% is in the ice caps. Less than 1% is available throughout the globe as fresh water. Of that 1%, 20% of the world's fresh water is in the Great Lakes, all right? So it's You can call it a shrinking resource, if you will. There's not as much as everybody thinks. Are we going to run out of water? No. The question is, can you afford it? 77,407 dams in the U.S., fully 1/3 are recreational. You wouldn't be able to build a dam today if you wanted it. You wouldn't be able to get a permit. No matter what the reason, you wouldn't be able to do it. It's almost impossible to do. The reason I say that 1/3 are recreational, that shows where our heads are at. You can't get a dam today because the ecological impact of building a dam is massive. Absolutely massive, how it disrupts the environment for a human need. And what's our need? Recreation. Fully 1/3 of it. Massachusetts has 2,882 dams. In my opinion, it's disproportionate. Why? Factor that by 50. If every state had that many, there'd be 144,000 dams in this country. So we have more than most in that regard. Some of the fictions about water, that it's pure. Groundwater is pure because it's filtered through the sand. That's not true, and it never has been. Sand can be used as a filter and is used in swimming pool filters as a filter, right? But it strains particulates. If you put a gallon of gas in the groundwater, you contaminated 1 million gallons of groundwater. Clean water is safe to drink. We, as humans, we rely on our senses. If it looks clean, if it doesn't smell objectionable, and if it tastes okay, then it's perfectly good and perfectly healthy. I can take that same water, throw a bunch of arsenic in it, and drop you like a stone, and you wouldn't even see it coming. Pure and natural is best. Pure doesn't exist, and natural can be harmful. There is no such thing as pure water on this planet. Even when you run it through RO, it's still not pure water in that sense. Natural, I wouldn't drink water from the natural environment. I wouldn't drink water out of a pond. I wouldn't drink water out of a lake or a river. And even for those campers that would go into those scenarios, they have little tablets that you can use that will purify that water. It won't take out any chemicals, but it will purify it and make it safe to drink with respect to microbiological activity. So mostly we're dealing with microbiological agents or chemical agents and or elemental. When we talk about our ponds, it's elemental, it's nitrogen and phosphorus. When you talk about microbiological, you're talking about things like coliform or cryptosporidium. Those are waterborne disease organisms, so to speak. And chemical, that's the one that everybody's really afraid of because that's where the carcinogens are at. So this is a symptom of a bigger problem. And that symptom is your symptom, that is one of your ponds. I took that yesterday in Mashpee. It's a small pond, it's only 6 acres. It's a no-name pond, it doesn't actually have a name, I checked. But it is right off of 151, and that's its condition at present. I can assure you that's not a healthy environment in that case. Sole source aquifer lens, and I'm getting there, so it's going to be quick. You actually have 7 lenses on the Cape, and they all have their different names, but they form one aquifer. And that is the drinking water for all the Cape towns, regardless of where they live. And it received its designation by EPA, meaning a sole source designation, in 1982 under the provisions of the Safe Drinking Water Act. The bottom line to having a sole source aquifer, back then they were extremely rare to be designated as such. Now I think there's probably a couple hundred of them. But since it is the only source of water that you have for drinking purposes, if anything happens to it, it becomes a major public health catastrophic event. So hence, that's why it has the sole source determination. This one's seasonal turnover. This is primarily for those who just went through this year. A lot of people don't fully understand what happens with some ponds, remembering that these are kettle holes, so they have no tributaries feeding them or leaving them. What goes in stays in there, if you will. And let's look at the summer up on the upper left, and then I'm actually going to be walking through the fall and then down to the right on the winter and then coming back to the spring. It'll stratify, and you have 3 basic layers. You have the epilimnium, which is top layer, kind of like the epidermis is the top layer of your skin. a thermocline, which is the middle layer, and hypolimnion is the bottom layer, and that's usually going to be the most dense and the coolest of all the water. Now, a lot of people believe that water's at its greatest density, or heaviest, when it's 32 degrees, when it's an ice cube. All right? If that's true, then why does an ice cube float? And why does an iceberg float? All right? That's not when it's at its greatest density. Its greatest density is 39 degrees Fahrenheit or 4 degrees centigrade. Okay? Twice a year, ponds will achieve this. So when it goes to, after the summer season, all the top water is warm, then it starts getting cooler and cooler. Once that top layer of water hits 4 degrees centigrade, it's heavier than all the water beneath it, and it sinks to the bottom. And in doing so, it stirs the pond up. And there's a lot of sulfides down there from organic matter decomposing and everything, and that comes up to the surface. It's volatile, it goes off in the atmosphere, and it stinks to high heaven. All right? Sulfur is one of the components that you have for septic odors and a rotten egg type of smell from hydrogen sulfide. So sulfides do that. So that's a turnover in the spring, or that's a turnover in the fall. Then in the winter, all the water gets cold. But as it starts to warm up and goes from 0 on the surface, and that surface layer achieves 39 degrees or 4 degrees centigrade, now it's heavier and it wants to overturn. So it can happen again in the spring. So usually twice a year in the spring and the fall. And so when it does happen, it's going to usually create a very odorous type of event. Okay, so where are we? We have 3 contracts, 1, 2, and 3. First one's the treatment plant, which is located at a transfer station. Collection system is north of 28 for one contract, south of 28 for the other contract. The system south of 28 is about twice as large as contract 2. We completed the advertising and had the pre-bid meetings for all the contracts already. The last bid is going to be coming in August 9th. The first bid is going to be the filed sub-bids coming in this week. Then contract execution, mid to late September. It can't exceed September 30th because that's the deadline we have to execute contracts by the state. Construction, if the town chooses to move forward, meaning the contracts are considered financially viable for the town, then construction would start this fall. Completion would be sometime in 2024. Each of the contracts has a number of months associated with it, but they're all over 2 years. Next steps forward would be to prepare for this watershed permit with DEP that I already went over this evening and that they already did, or not. So the town does have to make that decision. So this is going to come up again, all right, that you're going to have to decide. You have 2 options: either you get a permit or be prepared to tell everybody to get a brand new INA system coming soon to a theater near you. And then public information. Public information I'm going to get into in just a moment. So this is the collection system. You have up in the middle there, you can see there's a little green dot right there in the middle. That's where the proposed treatment plant is supposed to be. And then this road here is Falmouth Road, and that's the dividing point between contract 2 and 3. So you see contract 3 is about twice as large as contract 2. Now, this is what's coming soon with respect to construction. This is an actual construction photo that I took. That's installing a manhole at an intersection. All the pipes and tubes that you see coming out, that's for dewatering. And for what it's worth, under your contracts coming up, there's not extensive dewatering that's necessary. In these, there was quite a bit, and dewatering costs a lot of money. All right, so that's what all those tubes are going in and out, is to dewater the trench.
Why do we not have to have a lot of dewatering?
You're sufficient, for the most part, those areas are sufficiently above the groundwater, and the mains aren't that deep in those areas. The mains are going to be an average. They can go down as much as 15, but they're going to be an average of about 7 to 9 feet, 7 to 10 feet, okay? So in the process of starting to develop public information, all right, which will include parcel maps that will show the progress of the work. They'll be color-coded to show everybody. Photos, obviously. Updated status reports, and by updated, we're talking about weekly status reports. Contact information, who somebody should get a hold of. School bus route info. That can be a pain, all right? School buses are going every day, and this will be disrupting some of those routes. It'll be important for us to be able to work with the schools in advance to make sure that that's not problematic. Then you have the homeowner information for a service connection, septic system abandonment. So both of those they have to have for everybody who's going to connect. An LUI is a licensed utility installer. That's covered under the sewer regulations, which the Sewer Commission is looking at and hopefully will be approving at some point in the near future. And then looking at loan programs, because the homeowners are responsible financially for the service connection and for the abandonment of the septic system, all right? So this provides, the county has a program, I know for a fact, that will accept sewer connections as part of it under the septic program that they have. They will accept those and provide like a 20-year loan, so it's long-term. And the good thing about something like that is it goes against the property, it's not going against the homeowner. You go to a bank to take out a loan, that's all on you, all right? But here, if you don't pay it back, then it becomes a lien on the property. Okay, but it's not against your credit personally. So that's one of the benefits of it. So, and that was it. And the next time that I'm in front of you, I'll have a fair amount of more information, more detailed information along a number of fronts, you know, as far as trying to plan for permitting and what have you and getting ready for that. Okay?
I appreciate it, Jack. Very detailed, very eye-opening. One question that I have before allowing questions from the rest of the board is that under the permit option, does that allow you to set impose regulations that would capture phosphorus, or is it specifically focused on nitrogen at that level as well?
Right now, it is still focused on nitrogen. And so that you can see that, the advanced nitrogen systems that they have are that. They're nitrogen systems. They don't have the phosphorus removal systems, if you will, online yet.
Because, you know, I have to say the same thing that I said to the folks from the DEP, that, you know, there's more affecting our waters than the nitrogen, phosphorus. You know, with the number of year-round residents that we have now, most everyone has laundry in their homes as well, personal laundry. So, you know, the gray water, the groundwater is all affecting our surface waters. So it's not just nitrogen. We've got to look at things more comprehensively and address the problems, you know, from a larger perspective than just nitrogen, in my personal opinion. We have to do a lot of corrective actions. You know, it's not just maintaining the water as it is today. It's corrective measures to clean up what we've already damaged. Anyone else from the board?
Yeah, I have a question on it. My question is, because we've talked about this in the past, so some of these pre-existing systems that are within the proximity of the river, let's say Mashpee River. How effective are the systems that are there removing the nitrogen and the phosphorus and the existing systems? And what preparations are we making to change that in the future? How do we get into privately owned systems and have those upgrades take place? And let me ask you, are those upgrades required?
Think about it this way. One of the reasons that small community-based systems, meaning a development, if you will, a small development somewhere, one of the reasons those things came into vogue 20, 30 years ago was to get through a planning board. In that, because of the proposal, whatever the density may be, that somehow they wouldn't be able to meet their standards. They says, but we'll take care of that. We're going to build a treatment plant. Think about it. Are they prepared to take care of the plant? Are they going to go out and get the biggest and the best? You know, generally speaking, and it's nothing against them, all right, but they're not usually in necessarily the community's overall best interest when things like that happen. okay? So they can be effective, but it all depends on how much money you put into it and how much effort.
And so, Jack, would these systems be required to tie into our new systems, or are they going to be required to upgrade their systems?
If they are already physically connected to the plant, then they wouldn't be, the individual homes wouldn't, I would suspect wouldn't be required, if they're already connected into a plant system.
Yeah, and I'm envisioning a large commercial residential complex. And I know that the river's not far from there, and the Mashpee River is in trouble. You know that better than I do. But I kayak in there, and I can tell you by stepping into it occasionally, it's muck. So it'd be nice to get those rivers back on track.
One of the unfortunate things about the condition that everybody's talking about, it took a fair amount of time to get there, but it's almost exponential, right? It will degrade even faster in a shorter period of time.
It's good to hear.
Yeah.
You know, to that point, when you showed the maps with the population increase, you know, that's not factoring in, one, it was 1999 was the latest map, so it's still off. But, you know, the year-round residency has increased. I think everything is showing us that since 2020 and the pandemic, we have more year-round residents. So the numbers are going to accelerate. Everything's going to be compounded. So water quality is going to take a turn for the worse very aggressively moving forward. So we haven't seen the worst of it yet. You know, there's still a lot that we can forecast and anticipate on the decline exponentially increasing. Unless we do something, you know, drastic, you know, the anthropogenic environment, human interaction, we can change rapidly. The natural effects and natural things that occur that add to the decline, those things take, you know, hundreds of years to develop and, you know, reestablish themselves to a healthy place. But we can make changes aggressively and make changes that are going to effectively clean the waters up quickly, and we need to focus on that as a community for everyone's best interest.
Another thing to keep in mind, and especially true for Mashpee, is that the focus thus far under the MEP program has been historically the embayments, all right, not the ponds. It's been for that marine environment as opposed to the freshwater pond environment. What I can assure you is, and I'll show you at your next meeting on a groundwater flow map, that all of the water that is coming north to south, all right, passing under Mashpee, I don't care if it's going through a pond, under a pond, or around a pond, it's still going to the same place, the embayment, all right? Taking those short trips through the ponds, however, isn't doing the ponds any good. So focusing on ponds from a remediation perspective is without question beneficial to the embayments as well. I don't know why DEP never saw that logic before, but.
And some of it's making us down to the sole source aquifer. I mean, so, you know, it's in our own best interest to clean that up as well, and not just surface waters and the affluent.
Right, and when things get down in the aquifer, kind of think of oil floats on water, right? It's not as dense. And we already talked about the density of water can change seasonally. Chemicals have a density, all right? Depending on what is in that groundwater, tells you where it's going to be in the aquifer. Upper layer, middle layer, or lower layer. All right, they travel differently. All right, different chemical constituents and stuff, so.
One other question to Tom's point, though, with the subdivisions that have wastewater facilities currently operational, would it be in the town's best interest to include in the permit, you know, those things have a shelf life, and, you know, what, 35, I forget, 35, 40 years, 50 years or so. Would it be a good idea to have those, decommission those and tie them in to a municipal system so that at the end of the day, you know, down the road, we don't have kind of all these small plants all over town and everything's driven to just phase them out, you know, so that they're not, you know, they get the full life out of their expense to establish them. But would that approach be advisable for the town to kind of
Yeah, I think that there's a number of options that are appropriate for the town. First of all, most of them are private. So that issue of privacy has to be dealt with. Is it going to be something that the town is going to acquire, and/or is it going to remain private? Should it be upgraded? Should it be enlarged? Should the capacity be increased to accommodate more? But as long as there are treatment plants, please try to remember that no matter what kind they are, even though some are better than others, they're still some of the best friends that a town can have, okay? It does a big job. It takes a big problem, centralizes it, and puts you in a position to make that decision and say, you know what? If you go to this geographic area and you have this plant, at least you got it all in one place. And at that point, it is much cheaper to treat it and handle it than it is when you got to build it like we're doing now. All right, but I think that there's a number of different options for the town, because town's got to decide, in the end, is it going to be one massive plant for all of Mashpee? I think not. That's just my opinion. Is it going to be multiple plants of a similar scale? That may be appropriate, all right? Point being, it costs a lot of money to push wastewater from one side of town to the other side of town. It costs money to push wastewater up a hill. And from south to north in Mashpee, everything's up a hill, right? And that costs money to do that. So it's going to take a lot of thought, I think, but the good thing is that the plan that you have is a pretty good plan, and I think that the one that you'll have for a watershed permit is going to be much better. It'll be a better plan.
Thank you, Jack. Anyone else have questions?
I'm all set for right now. Next meeting, I'll have,
We'll get you next time.
I guess the next time.
Thank you, Jack.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask that gentlemen speak into the mics, because they're having a hard time hearing some of the places. Thank you.
Will do. If we could have Ashley Fisher come to the
Mr. Chair,
podium.
if I could, the DNR director was just excused because she's not feeling well, so I'd respectfully request that this item be tabled until another meeting.
I'd accept a motion to table this item till a future meeting to be determined.
Second.
So moved.
Hearing a first and second, all those in favor?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
You're welcome. Discussion and possible vote on granting an abatement of betterment assessment for 8 Leatherleaf Lane along the Charles River in regards to Teresa M. Coffin. If you'd approach the mic, you're welcome to come forward and approach the mic.
I've never done this before, so I'm sorry. I've written a letter kind of explaining my reasons why. Would you like me to discuss it further?
Wayne, could give us a little background?
Well, I know that Ms. Coffin had put in her application to review the abatement. She was notified of all of these changes, and through the town meeting votes, all of these were addressed to Ms. Coffin, and she also had received all these letters that talked about how she does a rebate, but how it was recorded. It was done at town meeting on 2 votes, one to come in and have the original check on what the road was going to be, and the second one was to affirm that at town meeting that they wanted the job to be done. The job has been done on Leatherleaf. It was the responsibility of the homeowners to get together to decide whether or not that was what they'd like to do or not. They have to have 50 plus 1, as you all know, in order to go forward. It all went forward as suggested. Ms. Coffin had all the information given to her, and she had received it all according to the receipts we have. She, I believe, if I'm not speaking out of turn, Ms. Coffin, is that she believed that it was part of the association, but the association has nothing to do with this. This is individual homeowners. And the second thing was that her address, she felt she was on Old Barnstable, Old Barnstable, and all of the mailing and all of that stuff goes to 8 Leatherleaf, which is her address. It was changed, the address, a few years ago, I don't know exactly when the town did do numbering of all these streets. So the decision here is for you folks to make is whether or not you want to abate this, I think it was $5,000 or roughly, on the homeowner or not. If you do the rebate, then it goes to all taxpayers to pay that bill for the abatement.
For what she doesn't pay.
Yes.
We have to
It doesn't go to the people on the street, it's the town.
Okay. Well, there was an association behind where I live, and they own all the streets, and they gave it to the town. It wasn't really my place to give it. I did get some stuff, but I didn't know how I was involved. I'm not, like, worldly, and I don't know how to do all this stuff. I did see on my bill that it said I could file for an abatement, and so that's why I'm here. I'm a senior citizen and with a very low income, and so I guess I'm just asking if there would be some form of abatement that I might be able to receive. I know in my 70s, and I never had to pay for a road before. I guess I always thought it came out of my property taxes, which I do pay every, year, and I presume that the fee for roads would be in that tax, real estate tax bill. And I know I got some information, but I didn't feel it was relevant to me because I did not belong to the association. And of course, there's many of them, and there's only one of me. So I just didn't know what else I could do if I went to these meetings. I obviously would be vastly outnumbered because they were financially responsible for keeping up the roads, and obviously they're not anymore, and I felt that they kind of put some of that on me because I was never a person who signed when I bought my property to be financially obligated to maintain the roads back there.
Anyone from the board?
Yeah, it's Teresa?
Yes.
Teresa, so I'm sympathetic to what your concern here is, but, I know this is kind of like the road-taking process, and you may not have been aware of it. The financial condition, there are 2 processes, and correct me if I'm wrong. There is one that you can pay over, 20-year period or something like that. And I believe this assessment was not as high as I have seen some come through. Some I've seen come through twice as high, which again, not to say is it $6,000-ish? $5,000. So if, not to say that that's a small amount of money, but spread it over 20 years. The problem with it is, for where I stand in my position, is if we do this now, we're setting ourselves up, because now the rest of the town has to pay for that. And if we do it now, who's to say we're not going to do it in every road taking, which we undertake this process, a few times a year. So I would have a problem with, waiving the process. But I'm assuming you could go back to the process of financing it over 20 years.
Yeah.
You must have checked that box.
How about even a portion? I mean, I'd be, grateful to get anything, any kind of consideration, because I know there was none given to me when I was forced to change my address. I was told that, I know there's a group, a condo unit, and they all didn't want it, so they didn't get their address changed. But then there's just me alone, and I had to. It's just kind of hard when you don't have, a group or whatever that might object to us. And any group that I had was behind my house, and the association, of course, they all wanted to relieve themselves of their financial responsibility, and which gave me some expense that I really wasn't expecting, and I don't really feel was fair. But I know fare is what you pay to get on a bus, so I'm not expecting too much.
No, I understand it, just,
Anyone else from the board have? For myself, I have to agree with John that, it kind of sets a bad precedent that others that had to contribute, as much of it, as much as it's unfortunate, it's painful to do it, but asking the town to accept those charges, I think John offered a viable solution to spread it over, an extended period.
Yeah.
Through the betterment process.
Yeah, I choose not to do that. Now, I noticed the electric companies on that road, too. Were they also given an a bill for the improvement of the road? Because I know that they have land right behind my house, a big company, the electric company. Do they get charged for the road as well? Just,
They have an easement.
oh, so they don't get charged?
Have easements.
I see. So they're exempt from being charged for that. Because like I say, I've never had to pay for the road I live on before. This is a first to me. Now, since I am of a low income, can I put a little, what do you call it? Like on the Mass Pike, a little collection, when people leave to collect from the people behind me that maybe, they can help me retrieve some of the $5,000 that I feel that they kind of gypped me out of. What do you call it? A little toll booth. Can I call it Terry's Way, right beside my house, and, maybe just put a little collection there? I'm just being a little facetious, but would I be able to do that?
I don't think so. I don't think you could.
You don't think I could? Okay. Well, I just was wondering, when you're in your mid-70s, you don't have a lot of financial opportunities coming your way, and I guess I just have to live with what I have, and it might mean I have to sell my house, but that's okay. Anything else? So I take it the answer is no. Is that correct?
We're going to take a vote.
We haven't
on
voted,
it.
but-
We haven't voted
Oh,
yet.
okay, yeah.
you can't, you can go back to, I believe,
No, I don't like to owe. I don't like to be in debt. So I choose to pay in full. That's
Okay.
the way I live. I think, that's a problem for a lot of people being in debt, and I try not to do that. So if
Okay.
I have to sell my house to continue to live, then I'll do that. Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Anything, are we done?
A motion on abatement of not,
motion to deny.
a motion to deny abatement of assessment of 8 Leatherleaf Lane.
Second.
Second. Having a first and second, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, conservation.
Discussion and approval of change to appointments to the Conservation Commission. So it's the recommendation that Chad Smith is currently serving as a member at large to the commission. He has requested his position be changed to an associate position with the term to expire June 30th, 2023. Marjorie Claprud, I hope I got that right, is currently serving as an associate member to the commission. She has requested her position be changed to serve as a member at large, term to expire June 30th, 2025. The members of the Conservation Commission discussed the following changes and were agreeable, I believe.
So
So-
moved.
Second.
On both counts, correct?
Yes, on both counts.
All right. Hearing a first and second, all those in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Yes. That motion passes. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Presentation on port by
Now,
port.
we have a discussion
Discussion approval. Reappointment.
Oh, missed
of
one.
Thomas O'Neill to the Conservation Commission. I think it was in the same.
So we'll have the discussion and approval of the reappointment of Thomas O'Neill to the Conservation Commission at this time. Is Thomas O'Neill present?
He's here.
Yes.
If you want to come to the mic in case there's any questions by the board.
Good evening.
Welcome. Could you give a little background?
Yes, Mr. Chair. There was an individual who had expressed concern relative to the reappointment. After consultation with the chair at the time, I communicated with the individual as well as Mr. O'Neill, as well as his counsel, and the individual was requested to be at this meeting, and the individual, on the advice of counsel, decided not to. But Mr. O'Neill said that he would be here with his counsel, and I know that the individual and Mr. O'Neill have some issue going on, but it has nothing, in my opinion, to do with this reappointment at this particular time, because other than the information that was provided, that they're not here to provide further info on or to clarify before the board, I have nothing.
Do you still want to be on the board?
Yes, I would like to still volunteer in my services to the town of Mashpee.
John?
Tom, just, we've known each other a long time, so I'm just kind of curious. This is discussion and approval of reappointment. So you were already on the board?
Yes, I am.
So were you on the board for how long, and how long did you step off, and just how?
No, it just expired, the term
Expired.
It was just
expired.
an expired.
Which is
Yes.
reappointed.
Yeah, so I think I've been on conservation for about 5 years, something like that.
So there was no time break, this is
And I've
just an
been, and
expired?
I'm currently vice chairman of the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you. Just for your clarification, when a bunch of reappointments came before this board, just before July 1st, this was originally going to be on that list. However, as a result of the concern that had been expressed, we delayed it on the premise that everybody was going to be at this meeting, and then subsequently learned from the individual who had the issue with Mr. O'Neill that they were not going to be here.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
here we are.
It was just the verbiage, instead of it's a renewal, it's
It's really a
a
reappointment.
reappointment.
That's all it is,
That's-
yes.
I make a motion for approval of reappointment of Thomas O'Neill.
I'll
to the
second.
Conservation Commission, and term expires June 30th, 2025.
Hearing your first and second, all those in favor?
Yes,
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
It's unanimous, thank you.
thanks, Tom.
This brings us to the presentation on port-by-port profiles and analysis of the Massachusetts commercial fisheries, Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance.
Hi.
If you
I
could
sit here,
state,
right?
if you could state your name.
Yes, I'll state my name.
for the
My name is
record.
Doreen with the Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance. Thank you for putting me on the agenda. Hopefully, I feel like you can hear me, but some of you might not be familiar with the Fishermen's Alliance, so I thought I would just kind of run through briefly who we are. The Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance was started in 1991 by a group of fishermen who were worried the Cape's small boat fleets would disappear if managers didn't start paying more attention to the environment and sustainable fishing. 30 years later, we just had our anniversary last year. Our belief is much the same, and we take our lead from our fishermen members and are involved in advocacy, research, education, and policy to make sure local fisheries are not just a vital part of the Cape's past and present, but also its future. So that is why we partnered with the State Division of Marine Fisheries and also UMass Boston's Urban Harbors Institute, that's hard to say fast, on port-by-port profiles and analysis of the Massachusetts commercial fishery, and that was published last year. The report provides an overview of the commercial fishing in Massachusetts, and for the first time describes conditions in each town with a commercial home port. I believe I sent a link of the entire report, and then there's also each town has its individual port profile that I sent along. The report was built around survey results from harbor masters and fishermen, as well as state landings data, and it highlights both the important role that commercial fishing plays in the state's economy, as well as access and infrastructure challenges that limit the industry's current operations as well as its growth. Our visit tonight is part of an effort by us, the Fishermen's Alliance, and DMF to visit every town on the Cape that has a commercial port, which is every town on the Cape, luckily, to elevate the awareness and fisheries of the commercial fisheries across the Cape. One of the reasons why the state published the report is because many people don't understand the enormous economic value of the commercial fisheries. Last year, the entire state's commercial fisheries were valued at $802 million. That's $802 million of ex-vessel, meaning that's the total amount fishermen were paid for their catch. All species before that harvest was resold in markets or restaurants, so obviously the value is much higher than $802 million. Just for comparison, that's more than the value of all the agricultural crops in South Carolina, and about the same as the value of all of Alabama's crops. And our fisheries are also more valuable than all the barley and carrots in the entire country, which is a nice stat, and just a little bit less valuable than broccoli, which is a little surprising, but it's true.
Eat your greens.
The Cape is a huge contributor to the state's number. We have many small ports, but added together, they exceed the value of Gloucester, which is the second most valuable port in the state, by $20 million. So that's $73 million versus $53 million, and those numbers have only grown since they were first tallied. So those numbers are much bigger than there, because those numbers are 2 years old. Well, 3 years old because of COVID. The Cape is also the only spot where all the towns still have a commercial fishing industry. Some ports off Cape, such as Weymouth, no longer do. Mashpee is a growing port, and I have some numbers, which you guys have in front of you, but I'm going to run through them anyway.
It says in 218 overview, Mashpee's fishery had 68 permitted harvesters.
Yes,
And do you have the date for now?
I don't.
You don't, okay.
Yeah, I wish I did. We're very close to getting the state's numbers. We're supposed to have them like this summer. So when I get them, I will definitely send them to you. But it's higher. Actually, you can see, if you have the second graph, active harvesters in Mashpee, it's like going up. It's like kind of a large trajectory going up, which is a good thing. There's some fisheries in the Cape that have stabilized, but Mashpee is growing. There's 408 trips landing in Mashpee. There's 28 active permitted harvesters landing in Mashpee, and there's 9 active dealers purchasing in Mashpee. And I know that there's at least one young fisherman who's looking for a mooring in Mashpee, so I know other towns have looked at the needs and how to fill the needs of people, of commercial fishermen. And in Mashpee, there was 132,516 pounds of catch with an ex-vessel value of $375,000. And the top 3 species were lobster, eastern oyster, which you guys probably know, and horseshoe crab. So there are a variety of ways towns can support the commercial fisheries. For instance, Chatham, Harwich, Provincetown, and Sandwich dedicate berthing spaces and other facilities to commercial fishing, which strengthens the fleet if they have spots that are specifically set aside for commercial fishing, as opposed to just competing with recreational on a list. Chatham also has reduced fees for commercial vessels, as do Orleans and Eastham and Provincetown. As communities work to balance competing uses for their waterfronts, information about existing conditions, for example, the size of local fleets or how many people interested in going into the commercial fisheries, challenges such as dredging and parking, and opportunities, including regional collaborations, can help decision makers, like you guys, ensure the needs of fishing communities are met. Those who filled out the survey in Mashpee mentioned the need for dredging, access to moorings, and parking. The Fishermen's Alliance is willing to help the town and can help with letters of support for grant funding. I know there's a lot of grant funding opportunities now, economic funding. We want to let you know we are also working with towns, county, and the state on another documented need in the study, which was dredging. Senator Sayre was able to get a $75,000 amendment into the budget that would provide research funds for winter flounder to see when they are spawning, which would maybe widen the window for dredging, because the winter spawning is based on outdated data, so they're going to update that. And that is actually
When will you have the newer figures?
We were hopefully by the end of the summer.
End of the summer.
And there was COVID obviously changed things a little bit.
It'll
So,
be interesting to see in 5 years the difference.
yes, absolutely. I will get those as soon as the state puts them together. So I don't know if anyone had any questions about the
One question
commercial
I have is,
fisheries?
You know, I see that you go back to 2014. Water quality and such has been impacted pretty significantly from that time period forward. Is there any way for you to get additional information to go bring your data back further to compare how many commercial fishermen we had in earlier time periods, say back in the 80s, 90s, compared to now, that correlates with the kind of declining water qualities and some of the fisheries that are affected by that declining water quality? I know scallops industry is
The Bay Scallop.
pretty much down and non-existent, you know, in the area. So, you know, information like that, I think, would contribute to our water quality initiatives, to kind of have that kind of information, you know, and do we have, I did hear you say that there's a trend of more people getting into the
Because of shell,
commercial
yeah,
fishing?
and Mashpee and shell
fisheries,
fishing, yep.
Here in Mashpee, is that this similar to other surrounding towns within the Cape, or is it unique to Mashpee?
Mashpee's, it seems, just from looking at all the data from other towns, it seems like there's more people getting into shell fishing in Mashpee. But like towns like Chatham and Provincetown and Harwich have more people in commercial fishing. And one of the issues is protecting the working waterfronts and protecting infrastructure, because the species that commercial fishermen might depend on change, like Chatham used to depend on cod, but now like it would be like skate and other species. So there's always, like, the ocean is very, like, thankfully forgiving. There's different species. So as long as you have the infrastructure in place, commercial fishermen are extremely flexible, adaptable, hardworking. They can usually match whatever the ocean happens to be producing at that time. So as long as you protect what you have, I think that's kind of one of the driving, or actually enhance what you have would be good, if that makes sense. But I can get those numbers from the 80s. So you just want, like, commercial fishing, how many people are involved in commercial fishing in the 80s and the 90s maybe?
Yeah, just to show how, if it's diminished or if it's returning to a normal, or if it's, you know, on an increase overall, would be of interest to myself.
Yep, I can get.
And I do like the, you know, the offer to collaborate with the town on any sort of initiatives that, you know, pursuit of grants and things that are in line with our initiatives to clean up the water with regards to shell fisheries or
Yeah.
commercial fishing or anything like that.
We do have a list of grants that we could maybe forward if you
Sure.
wanted to look at them.
That sounds good. To the town manager's office would be appropriate. Any other questions from the board?
Covered it.
Thank you.
Good,
Thank
good
you.
information. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Communications and correspondence, old business, update on the clear cutting at Algonquin Ave.
The only thing that we have, Mr. Chair, is the memo, which I believe is in your packet.
Do you want to try?
Should we
Read it.
read that into the record, or no?
That would be
Yes,
fine
no?
for the people that are watching at home.
John?
Yeah, the Dear Evan letter?
Yes.
The letter is actually regarding Nathan Ellis Highway and Algonquin Ave, Mashpee. It says, "Dear Evan, this letter is response to your June 2nd, June 8th, 2022 emails and your subsequent request for input from the Cape Cod Commission staff as to whether land clearing of multiple lots situated on 420 Nathan Ellis Highway and Algonquin Ave in Mashpee would require mandatory development or regional impact DRI review. Based on Commission staff review, it is the position of the Commission staff that the proposal would not require mandatory DRI review pursuant to Section 22E of the Cape Cod Commission Act. Please do not hesitate to contact me with any questions. And that's signed by the Jordan Filazzo, the Chief Regulatory Officer.
So I guess my question is, because of the A&R that was issued in 1986, I'm wondering, is that specific to the proposed development at that time period, which I think has changed from residential housing development to now a proposed solar? How is that factored into the commission's decision or advisement? Would be one question that I have as a follow-up to that. And, and then also wondering if, the town has the option to request DRI, that it be considered under DRI. It does say that it's not required, but I'm wondering, does the town have any objectivity to requesting it?
Just so you know, Mr. Chair, when I talked to Evan regarding this, he pointed out a few things that he feels is in flaw on this, and he is going to go back to the commission with some additional questions, and those that you've raised are a couple of those questions that he's asking.
Appreciate that, so we'll...
And we're also, sorry.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
We're also continuing to consult with legal counsel.
Okay, so
And
we'll
when
just...
Catherine gets back, she'll have, she's also working on that other portion of it, which is the erosion control, that they are in violation of as well. So there's a couple avenues we're still investigating, but this is the latest, and that's what you were looking for.
So we'll just leave this on the future agenda as a standing item.
Yeah, as we
and wait to
get
hear more.
information, if I have it by the next meeting, we'll put it on, sure.
All right,
Okay?
thank you.
So I'm getting waves from the audience, and that it's very difficult for them to hear.
Oh, really? Sorry.
It's not just me.
I'll try and talk louder.
Talking's the microphone.
We really can't hear you.
I'm going to move you up closer there.
We're gonna move right in.
New business, discussion and approval of the 2022-2023 town manager goals.
Which we have.
Mr. Collins?
Yes, you should have the full list, a dozen, and I initially sent these to the former chair, and there was a couple minor revisions that he had, and then we discussed them briefly, and then I submitted them to the whole board, and I asked for your approval, or if you want something deleted or added or amended, then this is your opportunity to tell me what you want.
I think it looks great.
Yeah, I think it is, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I mean, my thought would be, I had no problem with it when I reviewed them, but under the present circumstances, maybe we can reconsider and maybe motion to approve them and recommend them, and maybe at the next meeting.
So you need more time to review?
I just think under the circumstances with the resignation and the whole thing, because I'm sure these goals were shared and discussed at length with the previous chair. So,
I agree.
well, it's not like it's there's no time restraints. It's just, it's the whole annual goals. It's just, I'm sure they were discussed with the chair, and the chair's no longer here, so.
That's fine. I'd be good with that, Tom, if you don't object. I'd be fine with tabling this to our next meeting to give opportunity to review and bring forth additional considerations.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to table?
Yes, a motion to table.
Second,
Second. All those in favor?
yes.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I'd actually like to ask two things to be, I guess I'd start with, I'd be curious to see if we can add something to the agenda that's not presently on here, and the request would be to add an update on the lawsuit that was brought forth by, I forget the organization regarding Barnstable and Mashpee.
Conservation Law Foundation.
Conservation Law Foundation. And to see if we have an update, but it's not on the agenda, so I'm requesting that it be added to the agenda for discussion.
Is the town manager's office prepared to speak to that tonight, or should we put it on a future agenda?
Are you asking about the status of Barnstable or Mashpee, or both?
To add it to the agenda first, and then to see if you could speak to give us an update of where Mashpee stands. So, I mean,
I'm open to
It's
it.
a motion just to agenda.
I don't think he has the
If the town
information.
manager's office, I think it's, you're springing something on his
Yeah.
office to speak to,
Doesn't
that
have the,
they may want
we
opportunity
can't.
to get details to bring back to us, so they
Yeah.
don't speak out of turn.
Yeah, the whole thing was the motion just to bring up the topic. We can ask the question. We have to have a motion to even talk about it, to even ask the
Right, right.
question. It could be the shortest discussion possible, but, so like, that's my motion.
so he's adding to add
Okay.
some,
Does anyone second?
Tom did.
Hearing a first and second, all those in favor of adding discussion item on the CLF suit against both Barnstable and Mashpee?
Okay, yes,
Yes.
All those in favor?
yes.
Yes.
I think we can.
Okay, I guess this is going to be brief. I do know that the Barnstable suit was dismissed, and I do know that ours was put on hold by mutual discussion, waiting for the results of, I don't want to say Barnstable, but how things proceeded in terms of discussions. So I just learned about this actually this weekend, and I can tell you that I spoke to legal counsel today, and he didn't know about it. So there's going to have to be further discussions before I can really provide a detailed, intelligent analysis of what's happened to the board. But that is the info that I have.
That's fine. If we could, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. And the reason I wanted to bring it up, obviously it wasn't on the agenda, but just for clarity's sake, I'm sure Mashpee residents, just before I walked into here, it's all over social media about it's, that Barnstable they have released Barnstable, but, we were both sued on the same suit. So I know I'm going to get the questions when I leave this meeting and tomorrow. So I did want to talk about it because right now Barnstable's released, we're not, and we're going to find out if we may be released as well soon or not. From that.
So hearing from the town manager that, they need more time to speak to it with more certainty, I'd ask that we continue this matter to the next agenda to have follow-up at that time.
Mr. Chair, if I may also.
John.
I'd also ask if we can also add a potential reorg to the agenda this evening for the Board of Selectmen.
To my knowledge, we were going to, the clerk's office is discussing or looking into having a special election. So I think, doing a reorg at that time after we fill this vacated seat would be appropriate.
We have to do clerk and vice chair.
So you want to do
Chair.
something prior to that
We
and
should
and then do it
with-
again?
With us four now, and then when we have the special election, you bring in a new reorg.
Okay, open to
So
that.
you're asking to reorganize.
To
To put it on the agenda.
It was, unfortunately, this was the same process we did
Yes.
with the unfortunate.
John, when John
when
passed away.
John
Yes.
Cahalan passed away,
Okay.
so it was,
I would say yes to add it, a second to add it to the agenda.
Having it first and second, all those in favor, say aye.
aye.
Aye. So do we take that up at this time, or
Yes, we do it now.
before? Well, that's pretty much,
What's on the table?
that's
I'd
fine.
like to make a motion that we move John Cotton in as the chairman.
And David as vice chair.
David
It will
as
stay.
the,
We can't hear.
Microphone.
They got the volume down
I
or
don't
something?
know.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't have it down.
no, it's up. Is that better?
If the members of the board could,
You guys just not speaking.
if the members of the board could repeat their motion and second
Sure.
for the audience?
Repeat your motion.
The motion is to move, recommend John Cotton as the chair and Dave Whedon as the vice chair.
And Tom O'Hara as clerk.
Sure, I got to do paperwork now?
It's actually one motion at a time, though, right?
No, we can do all three at
Okay.
once. I mean, if you want to do them singly.
And so,
Okay,
do we have a second?
a second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay.
So that passes. So that'll be the new structure of the board. John will hold the seat as chair and facilitate the next meeting, future meetings. I'll remain as vice chair, and Tom will then become the clerk. Next item, liaison reports.
Discussion and approval of recommendations
sorry.
on draft one of the October 17th, 2022 town meeting warrant articles.
Correct.
That's okay. But we should hold off on this
Yeah,
anyway.
it's-
We just got it. Let's look it over, and we can start doing the articles at our next meeting.
That's the way we did it at the last meeting, and
Exactly.
I think that worked out well. Give everyone an opportunity to digest it. So moving on to the liaison reports.
I have
Are there
none.
any?
I have none at this time.
John?
No, I'm good.
I do have a liaison report. It's good news. It's good news.
Talk to the mic, please.
Again, huh?
You got to talk into it,
So,
buddy.
so we have good news, and that's what the, at the assembly, Town of Mashpee they got their check, or they got the approval of a check to be reduced, or releasing the funds. I think it was over $600,000.
Yes.
$657,653.41.
Yes.
Not bad. Cup of coffee on the 41 cents? I don't think so. Huh?
It's very
But that-
good news.
That was good. That was a long time, and a lot of credit goes to the town management here, Rodney, Wayne, and
Finance
Dawn.
Director.
Finance Director, Dawn.
Dawn. She worked very hard, so great job.
That's good news. Town manager updates?
Yes, that was going to be one of the items, and again, I would just echo the thanks to the Finance Director. I think the process itself was painstaking as far as what they wanted to be completed, but we got through it, and she did a marvelous job, and she made sure that I was certifying the process so that they couldn't reject it on that basis. The other thing that I would point out is, and I believe you may be aware of this, are you aware of the assessing information as part of the fiscal year 2018 certification review? Mass DOR issued a directive that the town of Mashpee must mail forms of list to all second homeowners for analysis as part of each and every reevaluation thereafter.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, and so the assessor just became aware of that these forms were not mailed out last spring, and as a result, time is obviously of the essence. We must send these forms out as soon as possible. The certification review begins on August 23rd, and his office, along with his vendor, need time to analyze the data, so the forms are being taken care of.
Is there an anticipated date when they may go out? I'm not sure how much work is entailed.
He didn't give me a date.
We don't have a date,
With
but
the turnaround, it's got to be
Pretty fast.
real quick.
Yeah.
yes.
It's just,
The other thing I just wanted to mention to the board, there was a special event permit for the Summer of Hope. That was an event that will take place, actually is taking place, right over here, Mashpee Baptist Church in Collins Lane. And I did approve that. I believe Terry may have sent you a notice on that.
She did.
And I did that because, A, you authorized me to do that under time-related circumstances, and we received it to the time that we couldn't get it on your agenda, so I approved it, and that's taking place. And I believe, yes, that's it.
so I'm going to jump in when we have a lull in the year. But I don't think people understand in the audience and even here how difficult this process was that the town of Mashpee had to go through to get these ARPA funds released. They had no other town on Cape Cod has achieved what we have been able to achieve, and that was due to this, your management here. And it makes a big difference. Now they can go into business and give directions as to how to move forward and get the funds released for the other communities as well. And this is all about getting motivation, monies back into the economy, and creating jobs for Mashpee and Cape Cod. So this is a big step, and they did a great job on this. The other towns haven't even put a pencil to the paper yet, and that's the truth. Good job, guys.
It was a painstaking process, but again, I just want to credit the finance director. She did a fabulous job.
Well done.
That is much appreciated, and we all compliment the work of the department. So that brings us to public comment. I have 3 people that have signed up. Elena Doyle, if you'd come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, it's Alana Doyle, Sunset Strip. I thank you for having me speak tonight. I wanted to say that the harassment and bullying going on in this town has been reminding me all too much of high school lately. Name calling, belittling, and temper tantrums. It's actually quite embarrassing. The last thing I wanted to hear today was that Selectman Gottlieb was resigning. I need you to understand, Mr. Gottlieb and I did not agree on much, but I have the utmost respect for that man. I've sat in this room many times in admiration of his research skills and the time he has dedicated to understanding the issues before him. He knew what he was doing and was an asset to this town. We are losing the involvement of people who are genuinely dedicated to the best interests of our community. Small groups of individuals are organizing the harassment of those they don't like or disagree with by interfering with their personal lives outside of town government. This is just such discouraging behavior. I once wanted to serve on this board because I thought it was a vessel for real positive impact in our community. Now I feel sympathetic for those in this position. I've seen firsthand the verbal abuse, manipulation, and lies spread about some of our best community leaders. I've said it before, but I need to say it again. Most don't realize the time and effort that goes into serving on boards such as this. It's a thankless job. For those listening, if you disagree with something, there's no need to name call. Advocate for what you want to see done or what you want changed. Being a bully is not the answer. We're all humans. We have feelings and it can only take so much. I genuinely am sorry to see Andy go. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcia McClinnis?
Close enough.
My apologies.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm also sorry to see Andrew go. And thank you, Tom. Thanks for all the great work with the county. I know it's not easy.
My pleasure. It's nice to be a part of that.
Yeah, oh yeah, thank you, guys. And thank you for those of you speaking to the microphones. Very hard to hear. And I think it would be great to have a timer for some of your speakers. I'm here to, I don't work for a living, but I know most of you do, and I give you credit for sitting through your meetings. I'm here to report that I've set up an online survey requesting or asking for people, if people would like to see Tom Fadala approved for the Sewer Commission. We're up to about 40 signatures, and the survey's only been up for about 3 days. So when you guys reorganize and start looking at these things again, I sincerely hope that you will give here consideration. Thank you very much. Oh,
Thank
look
you.
at that. I have another minute and 44.
Our last public comment is Arden Russell.
Hi again, Arden Russell, Sturgis Lane. Although I am not a member of the Affordable Housing Committee, I do want to advocate that an affordable housing goal be added to the town manager's goals. There's nothing on there for affordable housing. We do have a project in its infancy that's going to need as much attention as it can get to move it to fruition. And there also needs to be a coordinated effort to review and implement additional strategies to start attacking this affordable housing crisis. So since you tabled it to next meeting, I hope you can all maybe come up with a goal that would address the affordable housing crisis. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
I motion that I move...
Are we going to come back out after? Or?
No. I motion, my motion is move the board to convene an executive session to discuss strategy with respect to threatened, intimidated litigation relative to claims of Wendy Williams pursuant to General Law, Section 30A, subsection 21A3, with the chair having declared that an open meeting may have been detrimental effect on the litigation position of the Select Board and the town. The Board of Selectmen will not reconvene in open session. You can read that bottom.
David, I'm sorry, I'm not on the list, but I'd like to comment about that. May I?
Comment
About the law.
about what? You can't wait.
She said that she wasn't, she didn't sign up for a public comment, but she wanted to
I
speak.
didn't know if you were going to go into executive session.
You haven't voted yet, have you?
Have a
No,
vote.
we have
No,
not.
I just read.
So,
I mean, you still...
Sure, yes. If you'd come to the mic and state your name and address for the record.
Under 30A, 30 Karen Faulkner, 205 Ashers Path West. Under Section 21B, it says, "A public body may meet in closed session for one or more of the purposes enumerated in subsection A," which you've already spoken about, "provided that," and you have to meet all these criteria. The third one is, "Before the executive session, the chair shall state the purpose for the executive session, stating all subjects that may be revealed without compromising the purpose for which the executive session was called." I would like to know what the purpose of this is beyond what you did say. What is the nature of the litigation?
I think it does, it does state that it's a strategy discussion.
Well, I don't need to know that, I don't want to compromise any potential litigation, but I'd like to know what is the subject matter of the litigation.
that was read, and this was prepared by counsel after knowing what the circumstances were.
So, in other words, the cause of action cannot be
based on the-
disclosed tonight.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, geez.
It says, so you just have to read, "I declare."
I declare that an open meeting on these issues may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the town, and ask that we go into executive session at this time. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.